Hey guys, welcome to my Alien Queen painting video. I started this one out with a sketch just on paper and using pencil, and then I decided to get a bit more practice with the composition in general by painting with acrylics onto that paper. This was mainly just to get the details figured out, just to be as familiar as I could be with the overall complex angles and overall composition of the Alien Queen. I then transferred that to my large 24 by 36 format canvas and started painting it in with Payne's Gray acrylic paint just to get that background in nice and good, just trying to get the overall values knocked in there. I like to not leave any white canvas showing except for where it's like most bright. Once I had that all blocked in, I used Payne's Gray again and started blocking in some of those dark areas of detail where I would need to separate between the highlights and the shadows, and just using my sketch as a reference, trying to just overall get the composition in and figure out where everything's going. I went back in with some white and Payne's Gray and started blocking in some of the lighter areas of the painting, trying to get those highlights knocked in. And again, this is just trying to get the whole canvas covered with some kind of paint. I don't like to leave any of the white part of the canvas showing. I spent quite a few hours on this block and stage, just kind of going around the whole painting and using just white and Payne's Gray, which is a very dark blue. It's pretty much a blue and black mixture, but it makes this nice like grayscale type of paint that I can block in the whole piece with, trying to just figure out where everything is. I'm not really worried about any specific colors yet. I'm just trying to get generally everything on the canvas that I want on the canvas eventually. I added some little tiny xenomorphs off in the background too, just to give her more scale, because people know what size xenomorphs are and just their basic like almost human size. And so by adding these little tiny regular xenomorphs around on the scene, it makes the composition just look super cool, because it makes the Alien Queen look massive, because once you know what the scale of one thing is, then you can associate that scale with something bigger. So that's just a little composition tip for you. I also added all these little eggs in the foreground, just in the very bottom of the painting. I added some larger eggs and then smaller ones off in the background behind it, and that also gives a sense of scale. It makes her look closer, it makes the eggs give you an idea of like how big the eggs are in comparison to her and the other xenomorphs. And at this point, this is when I switched to oil paints. I have everything in there that I wanted there. I've got the whole composition kind of generally figured out, at least where everything's going. And then now that I've gotten all that acrylic paint down, I can go in with oils and start getting the colors into the painting that I want. I knew I wanted the background to be kind of this like blue color, and so I went in with the blue oil paint and then the green on the bottom. I also knew that I wanted the bottom half going up to be this kind of like green to blue gradient. I didn't do it right the first time, so I ended up actually changing quite a few things. I didn't like how just the green looked behind her, but I really like how the green looks on her, on the model of her. But then once I added all this green back here, I ended up regretting it later. So I'm actually going to end up painting over that part here in just a minute, you'll see. But it just, the composition wasn't quite what I was going for. It made it kind of look like a big old fart cloud behind her. I was like, you know what? That's not quite what I'm looking for. I played around with adding some like white paint behind her to make the green lighten up, but it still wasn't quite there. But I was just kind of going back and forth between the background and then working on the queen herself, on the character and the silhouette and all the details on her. And as I was making more progress on the character, just that background was very glaring to me. It just wasn't quite what I was going for. But I did spend quite some time just using the green, the red, and then a white oil paint mixture to add those details. So here's where I decided, you know what, the green just wasn't working for me. I used some paint thinner on a paper towel and just started scrubbing out as much of that green as I could, and then adding blue over the top just to give it that better gradient. But still wasn't exactly what I was going for. I ended up painting over this too, but I did get a lot of that green out of the background, and it definitely helped a lot. Once I'd spent quite a bit of time on the highlights, I went in with the shadow color This is mostly just a blue and black mixture, and I went back into the silhouette of the queen and added a lot more details on her by adding the darks back in, going around the edges, just making sure that none of that background color paint is going over the top of the silhouette of the character. And this really helps bring out the character a lot more, helps those details look a lot punchier. Just having more contrast in the painting is very, very beneficial. It brings her closer to the front, it makes her the more focal point just by adding all these dark colors in here. I added some more rim lighting around the edges, just a really bright green on the left side and then a really bright oversaturated red on the right side to give it that kind of glowing vibe. In my mind, this scene has like some red lights coming from the right and some green coming from the left. Maybe she's inside of a sci-fi ship and there's lights on the walls and ceilings, and that was what I wanted to imply here. And this part makes you think maybe this is difficult, but honestly, once you have the silhouette in and you have the main details figured out where they are, it's just about sharpening them up and like blending them out in certain areas. It's just about adding more paint or less paint wherever you need to, and just kind of feeling it out, figuring out where to add all these highlights and where to add these shadows. It looks complicated, but once you have everything there, it's really not very hard at all, and it just becomes fun and relaxing. So I actually really enjoyed this part. And finally, I did some more work on the background, finally decided what I wanted for it. I realized it was far too bright back there. That bright blue was just not working with the dark character. And then I added all these like hanging details back there, make it look like there was like hanging goop or vines or something, just to make it look farther back and like in the distance. It added a lot of atmosphere to the scene, and it really brought out the overall composition. I think that was the final touch that really needed to bring this piece out. So anyway, I really hope you guys like it. Here's the finished piece. Drop a comment, let me know what you think, who I should paint next, and thank you guys all so much. I will see you guys in another video.